Welcome back to The Mouse and Men, where we explore the grown-up side of Disney. I am Bradley. I'm here with my co-caster, Chris. Chris, happy belated Earth Day. We're still in Earth Month, I guess.
Yeah. No, I this is awesome. Again, when you first started talking about doing an Earth Day episode, with the way that we had things lined up, I was like, oh, it'd be after Earth Day. But in the case of Disney, we celebrate the whole month of April, or as a whole month versus a day. So yeah, I'm in. Let's party.
I mean, it all started on Earth Day. We were texting back and forth. Have you seen this? Have you seen that on Disney Plus? And then it just kind of bloomed into, well, let's just talk about Disney and their connection with conservation, with Earth Day. Just make it its own episode. So that's what we're going to do today. Just explore Disney and conservation here on The Mouse and Men. So, Chris, let's start with what kind of got our conversation going. You were texting me about Earth Moods that was just released on Disney Plus. Tell me about that.
Okay, so it's so interesting. I didn't know what to expect when I clicked on it. So just for transparency's sake, I have in several rooms of my house, I have an Apple TV. And when an Apple TV, basically after mine is set after 5 minutes, a screensaver starts. And it's just like these aerial shots of different places around the world or underneath the ocean or out in space. And so it's this neat thing. And so Earth Moods is a Disney Plus, almost as a version of those Apple screensavers. They are these amazing, beautiful aerial shots of all these places around the world, but they're 30-minute episodes set to music that kind of sets the mood. And so my wife and I, we turned it on, and before we knew it, like, she fell asleep to like the first episode because it was so nice and soothing. And I watched the first episode and watched the second episode where they fly through different cities at night. And so I think that episode 2 is city-based, but everything else is nature-based. Whether you're panning over the deserts or the Arctic or the Antarctic with all of these beautiful shots of snow, forests in a different episode. So just all these amazing visuals that just kind of set the mood. I mean, different music in each one of the episodes. And so it's not just all peaceful kind of stuff, but just a great way to unwind. So my wife and I have tried to do a bit of self-care in the last couple of weeks of, think we're coming out of the pandemic, things are getting busier again. We don't want to kind of fall into some of the ruts of just like burning the candle at both ends and like, let's take care of ourselves. So in the evenings, we usually get the Calm app open and we listen to something that's going to soothe us and kind of get us ready for bed. And then we usually have some white noise going and, just try to take care of ourselves and, settle down from a long day. And Earth Moods on Disney Plus is just fit its way right into our nighttime routine perfectly because it's just so peaceful. And it's just all these beautiful visuals from the earth that we can kind of fall asleep to. And that's exactly, I think, what this TV show Earth Moods is made for, of just relax, take a breather, use it in the background while you're doing yoga or doing meditation or something like that, because they are very peaceful and awe-inspiring as well.
I love it. And I think I've mentioned this before, the Sunrise series on Disney Plus looks at the Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and the Animal Kingdom as the sun's coming up, and just has some background music going. I love playing it on Saturday mornings as I'm getting my son breakfast and we're just kind of waking up. We want to take it slow on Saturdays. This is kind of the nature version of that, where it's just a bunch of, I think, Nat Geo B-roll footage that they've put together and put a backing track to. It is great to just have in the background, like you said, or if you just need need to meditate, just need to kind of unwind, put that on, because it kind of just lets you escape. Love it. The thing that came out on Earth Day that I was really gravitating towards is Secrets of the Whales, which,
yes,
I mean, I love a good nature documentary. And I love the water. So, but whales, of course, I'll watch it, and only got through most of the first episode, but it's on orca whales, killer whales. And my wife is sitting there. I think we were making dinner or something. And of course, my kid's running around making a bunch of noise. And she said, I need to start this over because I'm just so drawn in. And so she's going back and watching that again, after the kid goes to bed or something, so she can actually focus. But again, just great content that Disney's putting together, just for education. Edutainment is kind of what Walt Disney called it. Because the first part in conservation is education. And I was kind of looking back at what Disney has done for conservation. They started in 1995, the Disney Conservation Fund, which goes to help promote conservation across the globe. And they have donated over $100 million to this point to, I think it's over 2,000 projects that go towards, whether it's wildlife or like vegetation conservation, different. I don't know if it's jungles or just all sorts of different landscapes. What all they're doing, but it's a lot. So I mean, they started quite a while ago. I mean, I guess that would be 25 years ago, really kind of putting their money where their mouth is. So props to Disney for that. And I mean, if you log into Disney Plus, you will see tons of animal documentaries, nature documentaries, because they are trying to educate people, both young and old, on this earth that surrounds us.
It's amazing when you go, especially I'm looking at the National Geographic logo here on Disney Plus as we speak. And it's amazing. You mentioning, which side note, I aspire to be like Walt Disney did with everything from edutainment to Imagineers to Epcot. He did such a good job, or he and his team did such a good job of like mashing up words that like make sense the moment that you hear them. Maybe not Epcot, but you know what I'm saying? Like Imagineers and edutainment, like they make a lot of sense moving forward. And like, I aspire to be that clever that I can create something that is instantly recognizable. But that on the side, like just scrolling through the hundreds and hundreds of hours of entertainment that you can find yourself in that also does lean into that educational sphere. It's just amazing. I love that National Geographic is part of the Disney Plus family. Like when you first log on, it's Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic. And so when I look at 4 out of those 5 are just really heavy in the entertainment sphere, everything from the classic Disney princess movies of the past to Tarzan to all that. And then you've got Pixar, which is so unique in and of itself, and Marvel and Star Wars. But National Geographic, it is up there in that same heading as all those other things. And so it proves to me that Disney is taking this edutainment focus seriously enough to give it its own banner up at the top. But, I mean, for me, when I think of Earth Day or Earth Month, it reminds me to try to compost or to recycle or to, not to waste so much. And that's kind of what me and my little house with my little family feel like that we can do to help out the earth. And I appreciate that once a year, I'm kind of reminded of that. Disney, it's one of the largest businesses or companies in the world. And so the mantle that they have to get the message of protection, environmentalism, conservation, all of this, it really does blow me away that it doesn't just seem like a talking point or something that Disney as a conglomerate has to say. So people aren't like, hey, why aren't you talking about Earth Day on Earth Day? It's like, it is a mandate that I have known, like in my life, Disney has been a leader for me in me trying to think about the world as this global community the first time I rode Spaceship Earth, it even talks about that there, of like communication brings us all closer together. And because we are all closer together, we should pay attention to these things like conservation and protecting the environment, so that we can pass this on, not just love for Disney, but the love for this planet and this planet itself to future generations. And so in my life, Disney has been kind of they lead my mindset. When I think of that, I kind of go back to like, what has Disney taught me about this? And that's not always the case in every facet of my life, but especially conservation, what they've done with Animal Kingdom from the start with that. It just blows me away how they have made that a mandate, and they have pushed this forward as something that can be fun and entertaining as well as educational, and we can try to leave the world better than we found it.
Well, and you brought up Animal Kingdom. So Disney Conservation Foundation started in 1995. Animal Kingdom opens on Earth Day, 1998. We've talked about Wilderness Explorers just a week or two ago, where, I mean, your quest, should you choose to accept it, is to go around the animal kingdom and learn about different animals. That's that first part of conservation, is education. Plus purchases in the animal kingdom. There's the option to add a donation to those purchases to the Disney Conservation Fund, to help fund conservation. So you can get involved on a financial level as well. And, it can be as simple as just rounding up to the next dollar. It could be, my last purchase of the day, I got cash just burning holes in my pocket. Here's an extra $100, whatever you want to do. And
that's
again,
great.
It's just an option, but they make it easy to get involved, whether it's learning about the animals, learning about their habitats, or donating to the fund right there in the animal kingdom. I love it. Great job, Disney.
Yeah. And speaking of not just Animal Kingdom, but all of the parks, specifically in Central Florida, at Walt Disney World, I read this article, and I don't know if I actually mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago. For those of you listening, so much of what we talk about here on the podcast, we talk about beforehand, just in like text messages or whatever, because Bradley and I, we love the things that we're passionate about, whether it's music or sports or Disney, and we have all these side conversations going. So I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but there was this big long article that I read talking about how Disney deals with mosquitoes at Walt Disney World. And I was amazed to think about the fact that it was like, I bet you've never been bitten by a mosquito at Disney World. And I was like, no, I don't even know that I've seen a mosquito in Disney World. And that's weird because Disney is in the middle of Central Florida. It is so hot and humid. It's like a perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes, on top of the fact that they kind of built Disney World on top of a swamp.
Right.
And so thinking about this idea of like, well, maybe they just did a great job with eradicating mosquitoes in that area. No, it's not the case. They have gone through years and years and years of bringing in experts to figure out how not only to not let a mosquito bite me, but to keep the mosquitoes from wanting to inhabit a place like Disney, and finding other locations around Disney World that's more of a home for mosquitoes, so you're not actually interrupting that habitat of all of the different cycles of life that happen. If you were to just like eradicate all the mosquitoes, then what happens to the things that eat the mosquitoes, and what happens to the things that eat the mosquitoes? But they have thought so much about just the simple annoying mosquito to give them a place where they can thrive and be happy still on the property, but not just inside the parks. And so the level of detail that they've gone into to make sure that my visit there is mosquito free, but then also to not interrupt the balance of nature down there, it was astounding. And then to think about the idea that Disney or Walt Disney World, I've heard varying numbers over the years, but to say that something like 30 or 40% will be built up into things that we can go appreciate as humans, but the rest of it is just left for conservation efforts for the natural things that live around that area that will never be developed. And that was set in place by Disney himself decades and decades ago. It just boggles me how far through they've thought through even the most minute detail but then to take care of things so that it doesn't turn into this wasteland where all of nature is eroded over time.
I that's a very interesting article, because the only time that I can remember getting bit by mosquitoes was our trip to the campgrounds, the Fort Wilderness campgrounds.
That's true.
And hammock camping. That is the only time I remember getting bitten by mosquitoes. So, in all my trips, that's it. Just that one trip is all I can remember. So good job, Disney, for taking care of those pesky little insects. As I was getting ready for today's episode, and to go back to a comment you made, yeah, we text about this stuff, but like our top 10 lists, we don't usually talk about specifics. It's just, hey, let's do an Earth Day episode. Hey, that sounds great. Hey, let's do a perfect day episode, and we'll talk about, where you'd eat breakfast, where you'd stay the night before. Sounds awesome. But it's not, hey, this is what's on my list. There's none of that preparing.
Sure.
So as I was getting ready for today's episode, I looked at Disney Plus and said, okay, what are some of the things on Nat Geo or Disney Nature that I've watched and enjoyed? And I've got a long list, and we'll just kind of hit on a few of these as we've got time. I know I've talked about this, Wild Russia.
Oh yeah. That was a plussing. I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, it's phenomenal. I thought Russia was just cold ice and people in parkas. It's actually really pretty. It's like 3 months or something that they actually have no snowfall or something like that in the upper parts of Siberia or whatever.
Wow.
But just all the wildlife up there, it's pretty fantastic. So Wild Russia is one of my favorites. Chris, what are some of the things that you've seen that you're just like, oh, everybody's got to see that?
One thing that my wife and I watched during the pandemic when it was first getting started about a year ago was the documentary Free Solo about the free climber, Alex Honnold, who he climbs these mountains from just the ground all the way to the top with no gear. Like, he doesn't have a rope. He doesn't have anything. So if he slips at any point, if his climbs are not perfect from the time that he begins to the time that he is to the top of the summit, and sometimes then having to come down, he's done for. And it was a documentary that is on Disney Plus that I don't necessarily know that that Disney Plus or National Geographic produced it, but they purchased the rights to watch it or to show it. And it was one of those where my palms were sweaty the entire documentary, because he is doing some of the most dangerous things that I've ever seen and being successful at it. To this point, he's still alive, still doing these things, but he climbs things that no one would dare go without help. And he just does it just by himself. So the name Free Solo is him climbing freely as a solo climber all the way to the top of some of the biggest mountains and cliff faces in the world. So that was certainly one that I would recommend for anybody. And again, there is some language in that. So if you're watching it with your family, just know that. But I think that when it came to Disney Plus, they actually did some editing to make it a bit more family friendly than the original version that I saw about a year ago. So if that's a case for you, I think that the Disney did a little bit of tweaking to make sure that it was a little bit more family friendly.
Well, that just sounds terrifying.
It was. I'm sweating thinking about it. Yeah.
Oh man. Another thing that I think I've mentioned before, and Chris, you were really intrigued by a couple of the episodes that we were texting about. Drain the Oceans.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned this.
Just learning about, I mean, a lot of it has to do with how the oceans have changed over the years. Just, coastlines change all the time, just because the water, the waves just kind of lap up and wash away land here, but deposit it somewhere else. And so, It's just always changing. And Drain the Oceans is really interesting. There's a lot of, a lot of it is sunken ships, but there are other things as well. Just how different civilizations have sometimes just disappeared under the ocean. So that's another one.
So wild, yeah.
America's National Parks is a great one. 8 episodes on 8 national parks, including for Tennesseans in those along the eastern time zone, the Great Smoky Mountains.
Yeah. And that's a good one too. I think that just quick side note, I don't want to interrupt your train of thought too much, but just quick side note, like those of you that follow like the Disney Vacation Club, a lot of those Vacation Club or destinations have kind of a parallel with some of those national parks that you're speaking of. So if you're doing that, or if you're not going to do a typical Disney vacation, but you are going to head out to one of those national parks, that is like, if you don't watch the episode on the Great Smoky Mountains before you go to the Smoky Mountains, it's almost like a shame on you kind of thing, because it's so informative. It's so beautiful. You learn so much about it and appreciate it, get excited about it even before you go visit. So whether it's Yellowstone or Great Smoky Mountains or everything in between, definitely check that series out.
Yeah. A series that we've got 1 season. I think season 2, if we're getting one, was probably delayed due to COVID. The World According to Jeff Goldblum. Just
yes.
Fascinating to see his take on all these different things around the world. And now this is not necessarily as much nature conservation, but just learning about different cultures and different things in society. Just a fantastic series to get a different perspective on life.
Yeah, he is one of my favorite personalities and celebrities, just period. He is so unique and so quirky, and I love that about him. Like some people, I'm like unique and quirky. I'm like, take it or leave it kind of thing. But I just want more of Jeff Goldblum, and he really falls under that edutainment. What am I trying to say? One of those. Very informative, but very entertaining at the same time. Whether he's talking about different cultures or blue jeans or coffee or whatever it is, he just brings such spunk and life to everything that he does. I'm ready to have a second season of that too.
Yeah, just his natural curiosity is great. And the final thing that I had for Nat Geo is one that came out, I believe maybe right before Christmas. But it's the magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom, and just fantastic. If you've got anyone in your family who just loves animals, you're basically following veterinarians and animal caregivers around not just the Animal Kingdom, but all of the Disney World parks, because they've got animals. They've got horses in the Magic Kingdom from time to time. So how do they take care of those? The Tri-Circle D Ranch over near Fort Wilderness. They've got horses over there, just animals all over the place. How do they take care of them? They talk about it on the magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom. One of my favorite shows, Disney Plus original shows. Another one I'm hoping we get a season 2, because that was I loved it.
Yeah. And again, shout out to Disney, and specifically Disney Plus. I remember that if I didn't get to go see that documentary that came to theaters, or if, way back in the day with The Wonderful World of Disney, when they would show some of these conservation efforts that they were doing, I didn't get a real opportunity unless I was at the parks and could stop and sit and learn. But now with Disney Plus, I feel like that I have my fill of every type of entertainment from the world of Disney that I could handle. And this area about nature and conservation and environmentalism and all that is something that's dear to my heart. So I'm so happy that like there's again, I'm looking here, just hundreds of hours of things to learn from. So I'm so glad that Disney has created this environment for me to go and learn more about the environment.
Well, and just kind of going off what you just said, that Disney Nature series. So this started as shorts, and I believe Seal Island was the first one. The first feature began with True Life Adventures, The Living Desert. This is the first feature-length nature documentary that Disney had did. And the first time that I really said, okay, I could kind of get into this, it may have been on my honeymoon to Walt Disney World. We're doing the backlot tour at Hollywood Studios. And you walk into this prop warehouse where you get to look around and see props from different movies and TV shows. And as we're kind of walking down the hallway to get in there, they've got some movie posters. And one of the movies that was there was Chimpanzee. And it was coming out not too long after we'd been there. And my wife and I decided to go see it in theaters because proceeds were going to the Disney Conservation Fund. And I was like, I can get behind this. Just great storytelling. And what they do is they send a crew out into the jungle to film, in this case, chimpanzees. And they kind of cut the footage together to tell a story. And I mean, there is some creative license to make the story intriguing, but it's all real footage. And so that's when I really fell in love with the Disney Nature series. And they've done so many of them, penguins, elephants, lions,
bears, sharks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. Oh my. So really encourage you to just start with the education on Disney Plus. Go to Nat Geo, go to the Disney Nature section on Disney Plus, and then let that kind of shape how you visit the animal kingdom, because the animal kingdom is a zoo on steroids. So you'll just have a blast, especially if you've done some of this quote unquote homework, watching Disney Plus.
Absolutely. And Bradley, just again, kudos to you for mentioning doing this as an episode. I find this is a passion of mine as well. Just this whole idea that, making an entire episode to talk about the Disney specific things about it, again, we could go on for hours really talking about all of the efforts that Disney and the wide world of Disney has done for these conservation efforts and for Earth Day. So perfect timing. And I love this topic. We can come back to it anytime.
Yeah. So Chris, was there anything else that you wanted to add just about Disney conservation? They're tied to Earth Day, Earth Month, anything like that?
Not off the top of my head, other than the fact of just utilize these resources that Disney brings and gives us to learn more about the world around us. And again, to realize that this Earth is only one big ball with everything in it. And until we start bringing stuff from other planets, we have what we have here, and then we need to take care of that. So whether it's Disney or the Mouse and Men podcast talking about it, just encourage people to take care of each other, take care of the planet. So as we pass it on to future generations, it's there for them to enjoy as well.
I love it. Just keep that childlike curiosity. And again, that's just a reminder that you don't want to grow up too fast.
But whether it's Earth Day or any other day of the year, you got to keep exploring.